Welcome everyone to the archival slideshow from the authors of the Dance Theatre of Harlem, Judy Tyrus and Paul Novosel. We have a downloadable booklet in our Kensington booth. It's one of the smaller blue buttons that has a little download tag on it. And I'm here with my colleague, Michelle Ado, who will introduce you to the authors. Take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. I am thrilled to introduce Judy Tyrus and Paul Novosel, authors of the upcoming nonfiction book, Dance Theatre of Harlem, A History, a Movement, a Celebration, which will be available as a hardcover book everywhere that books are sold on October 26th, 2021, so just a few months away. In 1969, at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, Arthur Mitchell and Karen Shook founded Dance Theatre of Harlem with a groundbreaking democratic vision of dance that fueled its growth into one of the most influential and revolutionary American ballet companies of the last 5 decades. So now, for the first time ever, the essential history of this vital institution is brought to life in Dance Theatre of Harlem, A History, a Celebration, a Movement, by longtime members Judy Tyrus and Paul Novosel. Judy Tyrus danced with Dance Theatre of Harlem for 22 years and was a principal ballerina for the Oakland Ballet. Since retiring from dance, she's continued her work in the industry as an archivist, exhibition specialist, social media manager, photographer, and professor of dance. She currently works as a consultant for Dance Theatre of Harlem and is a co-founder of Chromadiverse, Inc., a nonprofit corporation which promotes cultural diversity in the performing arts. She resides in San Francisco, California. Paul Novosel has had a 40-year career as a pianist, organist, playwright, and composer, performing as a keyboardist in major venues throughout the United States and Europe, including Carnegie Hall. He graduated summa cum laude as a music composition student at John Corleone, I'm saying that correct, was a dramatist student of Broadway's William Hoffman and received his MA in music from the University of Limerick, Ireland. He has served as an assistant archivist and staff pianist at Dance Theatre of Harlem and is the co-founder of Chromadiverse, Inc. He lives here in New York City. Take it away, Judy and Paul.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today. Let's see here. Here we go. We're so thankful to have this opportunity. We're very, very excited to be here. To share a bit more about ourselves, how we got here, and most importantly, about the book itself and the story, the people, its relevance in today's world. And it was very, very important to me that this book be written, that the history of DTH should not be forgotten or erased. It's not, let's see here. It's not advancing. Let's see. Need help.
Trying to
Just advance.
Oh, there's probably a button somewhere in there.
Having some technical difficulties here. Hold on a second. Oops. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Sorry. So I was born in Northern California. In a multicultural home. My parents were very, very smart and supportive of me and introduced me to ballet at a very young age. I was really hooked from the very beginning. And I enjoyed the discipline and the music in ballet. And so I just dove in and really wanted to be the best that I could be. I joined Oakland Ballet and then danced as a principal dancer with Dance Theatre of Harlem, as Michelle said, for 22 years. As I was, learning ballet, I realized there weren't a lot of other girls that looked like me. So in this amazing photo, I'm actually being tossed in the air. So I'm not standing on his chest, I'm being thrown into the air. So it was really, oops, sorry. When I retired from dancing, I was so impacted by the work that Dance Theatre of Harlem was doing and had done for most of my career. And by accepting people of all cultural backgrounds. So I wanted to give back and eventually became the archivist. And I met Paul, who I'd like to introduce right now, who's my writing partner. He's a brilliant musician and historian and archivist, Paul Novosel.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Matt and Michelle. It's good to be here at Publishers weekly event, I just want to tell you a little bit about how I got to Dance Theatre of Harlem and how I got to write this book with Judy. My musical career, it's basically started like it starts with all of us when we're very young, and we find out what our mission in life is. And so when I was about 8 years old, I was thrown on the organ bench of my hometown church by a Catholic nun, and I stayed there for a long time. So church has always been my rent job, and so God has always taken good care of me. But I've done a lot of other things like pianists and music directors usually do. And so many singers start in church as well. So I did theater, and during the 80s, I had a show out on the road called Swing Street. And after I had moved to New York, I've been in New York about 30 years, I worked at St. Catherine of Genoa Church, which is at 153rd in Amsterdam. And the thing is that Dance Theatre of Harlem is at 152nd Street. So I was working in the school, and the school closed. And one of our parish council people was Ed Shelwer, who was the general manager of Dance Theatre of Harlem. And he said, well, they're always looking for pianists over at Dance Theatre of Harlem. So I went over there and discovered, one block away, discovered this absolutely wonderful community of artists, of dance artists, and just this top-notch organization that produces and does ballet. When I had worked in Kansas City earlier in my career, I was very active in the Black community and felt very, very comfortable and at home in the African-American community. So I had the skill set, knew a lot of music, and this shot here is in Studio 3 over at the beautiful studios that DTH has. And so I found beauty, and I surrounded myself with beauty there. And so I stayed there for about 10 years and just fell in love with the entire community there.
This is a photograph of the front of Dance Theatre of Harlem, headquarters in Harlem, the Hamilton Heights section of Harlem, where everything, all of the work for this company and the school happens. And here's a photograph of our founders, Arthur Mitchell and his teacher and mentor, Carl Shook, sort of on a typical day. They were such a powerful force together. Arthur Mitchell was the first African-American principal dancer and permanent member of Balanchine's New York City Ballet. And on his way, he basically had a fantastic career. And on his way to Brazil to actually after he retired from dance, he was on his way to Brazil and decided to form a ballet company. And on the flight, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. And he realized at that moment that he had to do something for his community in Harlem. So he came back and started a company and a school that became a global phenomenon. And this is a photograph of of the Dance Theatre of Harlem, performing one of their signature works called Creole Giselle. And it was actually while we were filming for television, and there were 46 members in the cast. To make the story relevant for us, the story of Creole Giselle, they transformed the ballet from Austria to Louisiana, and had costumes made out of this very fine silk instead of tulle to make us look ethereal and light.
So our book has wonderful photographs, over 200 photographs in it. And it took us about 8 years to write this book. And one of the things that we found out was that Dance Theatre of Harlem was this great experiment in diversity and multiculturality, primarily an Afrocentric community of artists and dancers. And while I was there embracing the community, I had found out the real meaning of what community is. And one of the things that was very, very important in this community that pervaded the entire organization ever since Arthur Mitchell began the company was that African Americans can do ballet and can do it really, really, really well. So it exploded that whole myth, and it's that's so important to know, especially in these days of where we're examining as Americans what our diversity is and what it means to everyone. That skin tone really doesn't matter, and so. And this lasted more than 50 years. And being community-based, a community-based ballet company, as opposed to others, he brought in children, he brought in all kinds of people. And he just was very, very open to promulgating that discipline and ballet is a wonderful thing. And here we have a shot of Carl Shook in a men's class with one woman in it. And what we do is in the book is we take you through all of the seasons, 50 seasons of the school and of the ballet company and their accomplishments.
Thousands and thousands of dancers flocked to Dance Theatre of Harlem. And the DTH company and school really impacted so many lives. And we talk about that in the book a lot. We provide, the school provides so much high quality training, and but understanding that people are people first, and then they're dancers second. So the teachers and staff really supported who the dancer was, where they came from, what they needed, really helped them along, really provided a lot of support and strength to them, and made them not only wonderful dancers, but wonderful people.
This is a photo of the very first company back in 1968, 1969. And one of the things that always amazed me about Dance Theatre of Harlem was their rapid growth. Within 6 or 7 years, they went from church basements to performing for royalty in England. They played the Palladium. They played in front of the Queen Mother. Next slide, please. And here you have a shot of Carl Shook with the Queen Mother. And not only that, but they performed these absolute wonderful top of the line ballets that were being performed by the Russian companies, ABT, City Ballet. And by 1985, they were at, the company was at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. and it was just an amazing growth spurt. And it's an amazing story that we tell in our book.
So after retiring from dancing, I wanted to give back to DTH. And so I volunteered in the Dance Theatre of Harlem marketing department, and realizing that there was so much work to be done in the archive, I eventually became the archivist. And as you can see here in the photo on the left, archives can be really messy and very, very complicated. So with the assistance of many people, we were able to make a dent in putting things in order. And so in 2009, fast forwarding a little bit, Arthur Mitchell asked me to curate an exhibit. And this exhibit was to celebrate Dance Theatre of Harlem's 40th anniversary. And it was a retrospective exhibit, and it included costumes, as you can see, sets, photographs, you name it, it was in there. And it traveled around the country for 7 years. I realized how impactful the exhibition was when I saw a young girl looking at the point shoe set that she said to a friend of hers, "Wow, I didn't know that there were Black ballerinas." And I realized at that moment that my work had really strong impact.
This is a bird's eye view of, if you were a pianist, this is what you would see. And this is what I saw every day when I went in to play company class and went in to play at Dance Theatre of Harlem. And this is in Studio 3. And one day when I was playing class, Judy, right after class, came up to me and says, "Hi, there's some scores in the archive that I would like for you to see." Well, being a history major, music history major, it was like catnip. And so I engaged with Judy and decided to volunteer time in the archive. She took me down to the score room, and these are all the orchestration boxes. And one of my first jobs in the archive that we got a grant for was to catalog and inventory all of the playbills, thousands of them, from 1968 through at that time 2017. So it was quite a job, but I just enjoyed so much paging through every single playbill and seeing who is in the ballets, who is in the orchestra pit, and even the ads were enjoyable to see from the 60s.
So we started having these really long conversations and digging into online resources and my personal archive. And over the course of 7, almost 8 years, we wrote the book, and we found a fabulous publisher with Defina in Kensington, and our editor, Essie Soga, beautiful woman, extremely helpful, very supportive, and so smart.
So I want to just talk a little bit about the magic of collaboration. Throughout my life, I wrote some musicals that we produced here, that produced in Kansas City, Cleveland, and New York, and around the country as well. Musical comedy requires a lot of collaboration between a lot of people. If you're doing original musicals, the book writer, the lyricist, and that's a real art to collaborate. This collaboration with Judy has just been absolutely spectacular. We just hit it off from the beginning, and I just couldn't say more glowing things about the collaboration. And also we have these teams and support teams in San Francisco. This is our team that help us put together lists and research and that kind of thing. And also we have a support. I have a support team here in New York City. Patrick Loy and a good friend of mine, Nacha, who helps us go through lists, proofread, and all of that. So we just love them dearly.
So much hard work and discipline goes into becoming a classical dancer, especially a ballerina. As you can see, this is a point class. And it takes really 10 years at least to become a ballerina. And so we talk about that in the book. And at DTH, we have to be completely versatile and fluid in all styles. So this is Jawole Willajo Zalar from the Urban Bush Dance Company teaching a modern class, an African class. And here is the amazing Mary Hingston, former Martha Graham dancer, teaching a modern class.
So in this photo, if you notice the four girls on the left there, they have pink tights. And so this brings us to an amazing moment in our writing when in Norway in 1974, one of the dancers soaked a pair of pink tights in a pot of black tea and dried them out, and then put them on and showed them to Arthur Mitchell, the artistic director. And it was an amazing moment. And we found out that this was like the symbol for our book. And the entire story is in chapter 5. And what happened was by putting on these tights that were her own skin tone, what happened was the body line now could be envisioned as one complete line from the tip of the toe all the way to the top of the head. And Arthur Mitchell said this, and one of the things he always said was the line, the line, the line.
And this is actually a photograph of an exhibit that I curated for, and it's called Harlem. And there were 3 legs that demonstrated how we at Dance Theatre of Harlem dye our point shoes and tights to match our flesh tone. And you can see here we're showing 3 shades, but of course there are many, many more shades of tights. And it was really a fine art, science to figure out how to get everyone's tights and shoes to match exactly. And it really gave the dancers the opportunity to really embrace their skin tone and have the freedom to be who they really are.
So in speaking of skin tone, Judy and I had just lengthy heart-to-heart talks that surfaced about issues around skin tone, and also DTH's, Dance Theatre of Harlem's, multiculturality. And from these discussions, we decided not to use race or racism, those words in our book, because we found it very decisive. So we adopted using our own vocabulary that we chose. And one was one race, many cultures. We took that philosophy. So we don't even use black and white in our discussions in the book, because that makes insiders and outsiders. So we refer to the dancers by their cultural heritage if we have to. So for instance, I'm Croatian, Sicilian American, Judy is African American, Japanese, and we found out that words matter. And we found that when you speak that and you speak in those terms, there's a real inclusivity that is brought forth. This shot here is Angelica Das's photography project called the Humana Project. And she had discovered that pretty much all human beings have Homo sapiens, the one race, Homo sapiens, have brown skin, some fairer and some deeper. And that's the way evolution did it. And so we went to the science. And if you go to the science and you see the science, you'll find out that we have so much more in common with our brothers and sisters throughout the world. And then Nina Jablonski is absolutely wonderful. Dr. Nina Jablonski was has studied her entire life the science of skin pigmentation, and she talks about the illusion of skin color and how the evolution of skin tone also evolved with racism and anti-cultural, what we call in the book, anti-cultural bias, or being anti-cultural or cultural bias. So the human skin color is really about the base level of eumelanin pigmentation that has been adapted to environments, right? North, south, equatorial, from the high UV radiation from the sun. So again, the science. Europeans have less, and those on the equator have more. And this is the stance we took with science. So we look to the science in our book.
And there were so many fabulous and famous people that were in our orbit. And this is a photograph in 1992 of Nelson Mandela, who came backstage after the performance and told the company how marvelous we were. And this is a photograph of Princess Diana backstage after a performance. And she was actually so amazing and so engaging and beautiful. And she asked all of us, each and every one of us, what we performed that evening and how we felt about the role. And I think you know who they are.
And also in the orbit of the celebrities. And in our book, we cover many of them that that came into DTH, that came to visit, that appeared with the company, that appeared at galas, that appeared at parties, that were just part of the community. This is Hinton Battle, who appeared in Sophisticated Ladies on Broadway and won a Tony Award. And in this next slide is Jeffrey Holder, who choreographed beautiful ballets for Dance Theatre of Harlem.
And this is a photograph of the current company. And I just love it because of the beautiful shades of brown and all of the cultural diversity that are in the company. It's just a wonderful photograph, I think.
And if I could just chime in, Judy,
Yes.
what's beautiful is we talk about the sepia rainbow, okay, of humanity, and the sepia rainbow of Homo sapiens, the one race, and that's what we are. Is just this beautiful sepia rainbow, and if we embrace that, we embrace so much. So again, ballet and Dance Theatre of Harlem has given us so much.
Yes, and this past year was really hard for the company with COVID and Black Lives Matter. So many performances had to be canceled, and that's devastating for dancers because not only financially, but because it's really, really hard to stay in shape. So an amazing thing that the company did was that they gave everyone a piece of Marley or dance floor so that they could rehearse and perform basically in their living room and keep in shape. And they eventually created a ballet on Zoom that way. So the company really had to shift. They had to pivot, how they worked and how they stayed in the light, of their audience. And so the dancers actually created a video. They choreographed and filmed the video, and it's called Dancing Through Harlem, and it went completely viral on YouTube.
And this is a shot of a recent performance by the company at the Guggenheim Museum. And this was a couple of years ago, and things came full circle because the very first New York debut of the company was at the Guggenheim. So it was a very exciting time. And Dance Theatre of Harlem celebrated recently their 50-year anniversary.
And I think this is a fabulous photo to end our slideshow with. It's a photograph of Robert Garland's Nyman String Quartet, and the dancers are pointing upward. And to me, it kind of signifies upward and onward and forward into making more dance, more beautiful dance. And this book is really a tribute to the company's vision that ballet is for everyone.
And for those, this book, we do have to say, is for those who may not know a lot about ballet, the casual reader. It's fine for students. Researchers will have a heyday. It's pretty much the go-to resource for Dance Theatre of Harlem. And for those who just want to read about this incredible story, about this incredible dance company. We just want to thank you ahead of time. And thanks so much to Michelle and Matt.
Yes, thank you so much.
And the folks at Kensington.
Well, thank you too. Thank you guys so much. Luckily, we have a bit of time left, and I'd love to ask a few questions that have come in through your presentation. Remember, everyone in the audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Judy and Paul, you can put them in the chat function here, shoot them over to us and we'll ask. But first off, I have a question regarding your identification and choice to use ethnicity as opposed to race. When you were kind of shopping around this book and showing it to different individuals before kind of getting to the point where it was going to be published, have you gotten any pushback on insisting only on referring to ethnicity and denying race identification? Was that a challenge you had to face? And if so, how did you go about that?
Paul, I'll let you go.
Oh,
take that.
oh, you're asking me. Okay, all right. In terms of pushback from our editors, is that what you're asking, Michelle?
I mean, anyone who has heard about the book. I mean, Dance Theatre itself, people that you told about it, your editors when you first brought it up.
Yeah, okay. In terms of race and our vocabulary, once people understand, I think that, you know, the definitions that we don't say race, we say culture, is because basically what happened was engagement. So Carl Shook, Arthur Mitchell, and all the people in Dance Theatre of Harlem, they engaged, right? And that's what has to happen. In our book, Dan Rather did a wonderful, wonderful editorial about engagement. And nothing's going to happen in diversity, with diversity, and with people coming together in our country unless people engage, truly engage. And one of the questions you ask in engagement is, what's your heritage? You know, what's your culture? Let me embrace that culture. And that's how we embrace cultures, and we embrace people and we befriend people. So, you know, racism, that word is such a conversational bomb anymore. You know, it's just thrown into these conversations. Oh, that's racist. You know, this kind of thing. Well, you know, is that productive? To me, it's not productive. What's productive is I want to know you. I want to engage with you. What are you about? You know, and so I never got any pushback from any of my friends. I have a substantial circle of friends here, and they nod their heads and they say, yeah, you're right. You know, and as a matter of fact, in conversations with them is how we developed this vocabulary. You know, I'm Croatian American, you're Irish American, you're Euro-American, or you are, you know, Anglo-American. You know, what does that mean? I'm African American, you know, and let's share those cultures. Let's, you know, see who each other are and then go from there.
Wonderful. So
your question.
It does. Or I hope it does for the person who asked it. Actually, related to that, I have a different question that came in. How has your sense of community changed or remained the same since working with Dance Theatre of Harlem? Both of you guys have had a very long career with Dance Theatre. So has comparing kind of before you were officially and professionally introduced to dance theater and after, how did your sense of community change?
Well, to write a book like this, you have to embrace everyone. I mean, you cannot exclude anyone. And it was a big piece of our conversations that we always tried to get everybody in the book. We didn't want to leave anyone out, and I think it was just top of our list, to try to get everyone in. Now you have 52 years and thousands of people. It's really, really hard to do that, but we made such strong efforts to really include as many faces, as many people's names, of course, sharing this incredible story that included so many. So I think that it was really one of our main goals, was to be very, very inclusive of everybody.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I remember one conversation I had with a dancer, beautiful dancer. She was a Firebird and taught at Dance Theatre of Harlem. And I remember at one point I had said, we were talking about diversity and multiculturality. And I said, well, you being African American. And she said, I'm not African American. I'm Cape Verdean American. And here she was from this island off the coast of Africa. And so when you're engaging and when you're in the community, and you hold yourself a bit vulnerable, you build up a sense of community that is unexpected sometimes, that is a learning experience, and is very rich because we have so much to learn from other cultures. So that's why we don't say the four different races. That was, created in the 1800s by some Euro-American men in Europe, during the Enlightenment. This whole thing about four races, what? Who's yellow? Wait, what's that all about? So instead of race, we say culture, and that just, I think that gives respect and dignity to every human being, and then there's no colorism, right? If we sort of take a look at, we always do, the Kleenex test, okay, I don't think this is white, and I'm, so yeah. And I think that just, that puts a focus on the respect for every human being. And like Judy had said, there's so many different people at Dance Theatre of Harlem, the whole sepia rainbow.
Wonderful. So my next question is, with the formation and subsequent success of Dance Theatre of Harlem, what do you think is the next in terms of increasing inclusivity within the dance community?
I think it's just the work itself, the art form itself, that Dance Theatre of Harlem does art at the highest level of excellence. And I think that that's what they're going to continue to do. They're going to continue to outreach and to expose young people, old people, everyone to the art form, the beauty of it, the high standard of excellence that they achieve through it. And I think it's the work, it's the art that's going to keep going. And I think this year has been tough. They're going to just have to, work that much harder to get back out there, back on stage, into theaters again. And it has been Dance Theatre of Harlem's mission since the very beginning to go into communities and to share the art of ballet, and to help people understand that ballet is for everyone. And so that work is just going to continue strong.
Awesome. And I think we have time for one more question, Matt, correct?
Yeah, I was so happy to hear you talk about engagement and community. And for the dancers themselves, the slideshows showed kids of every age. How much sort of collaboration and work are they doing together as they sort of progress through the program and as they grow as dancers? Like, are they, like truly like supportive of one another, and are they relying on one another in the way you would, just like in school, say, with your classmates? Like, what is that culture like with the kids?
It's fabulous. And actually, from the very beginning, when Arthur Mitchell and Carl Shook formed Dance Theatre of Harlem, they insisted that the younger dancers have parents and siblings and aunts and uncles within the company, so that there was always this support network, so to speak, that helped them understand and navigate this road to artistic excellence. And so there was always this sort of mentorship that happened between not only the company members themselves, but also between the company members and the students in the school. And the wonderful thing about Dance Theatre of Harlem was that you could watch, so the students in the school could actually watch the company members rehearsing and doing that hard work that it takes. And so it was always like so inspiring for them to see that. And so there's this wonderful mix and support network at Dance Theatre of Harlem.
And also there are summer intensives where kids from all over the world converge for the summer and do intensive work in ballet. And it's this beautiful sepia rainbow of engagement. And ballet and the hard work and the discipline is the glue that puts it all together.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. The two of you are brilliant. The book is brilliant. I'm going to remind everyone who's still here that we have an excerpt for download at our booth. You can come to the booth and chat with Michelle and I and some of our other colleagues if you'd like to know more about Dance Theatre of Harlem. And I think with everything that we've gone through, I think that we can close. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Michelle, is there anything you wanted to
guys.
add? Okay.
No, just remember the date, October 26th, 2021, Dance Theatre of Harlem, available everywhere books are sold.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.